Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
My guest now, Rod Blagojevich, who I saw the other night in an incredible interview with Tucker Carlson, was the former governor of Illinois, the first Democrat elected to that office in 26 years. Prior to that, he served in the U.S. Congress. He was also known as federal prisoner number 40892-424 after being wrongly convicted of public corruption on charges having to do with the U.S. Senate seat vacated on Barack Obama. In many ways, Rod Blagojevich was the poster child for a politicized and weaponized judiciary system, because I've read all about his case, and I can tell you Rod Blagojevich did nothing wrong. It is a pleasure and an honor to have us joined by this great American. Rod, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Hi, Roger. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your kind words.
Well, I know why they had to bust you, my friend. I think you would have been president. I can honestly say in the 45 years I've been in American politics, I have never seen, with the possible exception of Ronald Reagan himself, a better political communicator, a more natural political leader than you. I mean, I've been in a downtown Chicago restaurant with you, and I've seen the way the people love you. All people love you. And I think most folks in Illinois and in the country realize that you got a bum deal. Let's go through that real quickly because we have much better things to talk about. But in essence, I think you were set up because you refused the orders of Barack Obama.
Yes, I think that's a part of it. I do, and I think that there were other factors as well. It was really, I think, a product of the corruption of the Department of Justice with the new politics of weaponized prosecutors, criminalize things that are legal, necessary, and routine in politics, injecting themselves into the political process and doing to me, a Democrat governor at the AAA level, what they successfully were able to do with a rigged court system after 2 trials. And then they got emboldened and went after Donald Trump this way, the other party. But that's that uniparty in Washington and in other places and in the Department of Justice that is destroying the rule of law, the Constitution, and stealing freedom from people like me who wouldn't give in. But they're really a threat to all of us and our freedoms. Obama started the whole thing. He sent an emissary to me on election night to talk about a political deal because he had a candidate he wanted me to appoint as senator. We began talking about that. They criminalized it against me. It was never corrupt. There was nothing about, I want $10 million in a Swiss bank account. It was, what kind of political deal we can make. Eventually, the appellate court ruled that we were right and they were wrong. After I sat in prison for nearly 5 years, they reversed those charges because they were never crimes. But Obama, I think, made a deal with them, and they basically went to him and they basically said, keep us in here as U.S. attorneys, because those were Bush-appointed U.S. attorneys. And we'll leave you alone as long as you don't get involved and do anything to lift a finger to help him. And the moment they were able to secure their convictions at a second trial, all those prosecutors left, got big jobs in big law firms making millions of dollars, and Obama would do nothing to help me. And the great irony, Roger, is that Donald Trump, who didn't know me that well other than a brief stint that I had on Celebrity Apprentice, saw the wrong in it all. And then when he had an opportunity to do what he could, because there were political difficulties he had to actually help a Democrat governor, he did it. And it's just a tale of 2 presidents, really. Obama cold, calculating, sort of indifferent to what's right and wrong, very selfish. And Trump, actually a guy with a kind heart who sees wrong things and actually has the courage, the testicular virility to do something. And in my case, Roger, it's among the reasons why I'm always going to be grateful to President Trump. He gained nothing by helping a Democrat governor. He just saw something that was wrong and ended it. And the best gift my kids have ever gotten, my little girls were little when I went away to prison, and 8 years later they were grown when I came home. The best gift my daughters have ever gotten in their lives and will ever get in their lives was the gift Donald Trump gave them when he brought their father home and gave them their father back.
Well, you were the first governor in the United States to endorse Barack Obama for president. So let no good deed go unpunished. Right. I remember everything.
Go ahead, Roger. What?
I remember everything.
No, of course you do. Yes, and you did nothing wrong either. But I had 2,896 days sitting in prison, reminding myself of that. I was the first Democratic governor in America to endorse Obama. I knew him since 1995. We came up together in Chicago politics, and he was all right, but he's I didn't really know him to be the guy that he really turned out to be. And he had great idea. There was hope that when he was elected first black president, that he would usher in a new era in American politics and bring our country together and unite us under what our country's supposed to be, and that is a country of meritocracy, where anybody, white or black, can chase their dreams and get ahead and live the American dream. But what he did was he quickly reverted to what really is his instinct anyway, just to be a cold, calculating, professional politician. And he saw for political reasons he would inflame the black community, divide our country, rather than bring it together, because the only way that they can get black voters to come out in big numbers and provide 90 to 95% of the vote to the Democratic candidate is to point fingers at others, in particular, the white community, and divide our country, because they have done nothing to lift up black people, because their policies have failed, and they're really basically fake. And what did Lyndon Johnson say when they basically provided some of those Great Society programs? We'll get the end vote for 200 years. That's how they see it. They're practical politicians. They're cynical, and they don't really care about lifting black people up. In fact, I would argue black people would be in a much stronger position today in America and really embrace and have a chance to live the American dream had there been other people in charge over those last, 40 years or so since Johnson did what he did.
People don't realize what a strong governor you were. You created historic access to affordable health care for the children of Illinois, free mammograms and pap smears for tens of thousands of women who had no health insurance, established free public transportation for every senior citizen, and you fought taxes during your entire time as governor. You sound to me like you did a great job. I don't think you get the credit you deserve for being not just a good governor, but a great governor. I got to ask you, though, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson recently said that the surging crime violence in the city of Chicago is all Richard Nixon's fault. Can you illuminate this for us?
Well, look, that's another thing that these politicians do when they can't solve problems or don't have the courage to do the hard things necessary to solve problems. In this particular case, the crime problem in Chicago is the gangbangers in the poor neighborhoods, disproportionately, that are black, but they're also Latino, and they're also in some of the other areas too, but largely in the black neighborhoods and the Latino neighborhoods. The gangbangers are running wild because the Democrats here in Illinois, Pritzker, our governor, before Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, the mayor, now Brandon Johnson, have abandoned the police. They've become hostile to the police and the jobs of the police. And the community, ironically, that gets hurt the most by that are the poor black neighborhoods where crime is rampant because the gangbangers control the neighborhoods. They control the streets. And they control the streets because they know the police are handcuffed. Now, I spent 8 years in prison with criminals, gangbangers. I'm the only governor in American history to put in a higher security prison. I'm writing a book about it. I was a governor that was in prison with Crips and Bloods and gangster disciples and Sinaloa cartel drug dealers. There were murderers in the prison I was in for my first 3 years. So I got to know these guys. And what I know as a fact is that the moment the police aren't around, these guys get active. And when they know the police are on the run, they get really active because this is what they do for a living. This is their livelihood. And in Chicago, the gangs are controlling neighborhoods, and they control streets, and the police are handcuffed, and they're afraid to do anything lest someone make a mistake, and all of a sudden they're sent to prison for 1,000 years. We need more police officers because gangbangers outnumber police something like 75-1. And this guy won't do it. He's going to raise property taxes now to keep funding schools that are failing because they're controlled by the teachers' unions who resist any kind of change. And again, here it is. The black community mostly is the community that suffers the most because of these policies. This mayor seems like a nice enough guy, but he's in over his head. He's controlled by the certain unions, and his only answer to his inability to solve problems is that he's a black man and he's being treated unfairly. I mean, this guy literally talks like that. And I think the American people and the black community too are getting sick and tired of these politicians, white or black, who refuse to solve problems or do the hard things to solve the problems, and in some respects don't want to solve the problems. Roger, it's a cynical business, and you know this better than I do. There are too many politicians, and it's certainly the case with the Democrats in Washington, led by Pelosi and Schumer. They don't want to solve problems. They want the problems there so they can have political issues. And this is why Trump is such a threat to them, because Trump is not a politician. He's been in politics, but he's not one. He's a problem solver. He's a businessman. He wants to get things done. And in his first term, he was doing that, got interrupted because of COVID. And now, God willing, your listeners get out there, and I got to think most of them are for Trump. You got to execute, do your civic duty. It's a responsibility. You got to vote. I've no politics. I've run in a lot of elections. I won every one of them. And the only reason that I was able to win was we had a game plan and we executed. And the voters have to execute. And if you're a Trump supporter, don't take this for granted. Things look good, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't actually do the thing that it's supposed to decide the election, that is to go vote. So I would encourage your listeners, Roger, to get out there and vote.
If you're just tuning in, folks, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Governor Rod Blagojevich, a Democrat of Illinois. Don't touch that dial because we're going to be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
And we're back with the Roger Stone Show. Our guest, Governor Rod Blagojevich, former Democrat governor of Illinois, now a proud supporter of President Donald Trump. Governor, I think that there's a political realignment going on in America. I see Republicans like Dick Cheney, who candidly lied this country into war. We went to war based on his assurances that Saddam Hussein and those in Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. He pressured Colin Powell, then the National Security Advisor, into telling the UN that Iraq had acquired yellow cake or uranium for the production of nuclear weapons. Turned out to be false. And the worst and most egregious lie of all, that Iraq played some role in the attack on America on 9/11, launched us into a war in which tens of thousands of Americans lost their lives and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis lost their lives. Every Democrat, every liberal I knew thought that Dick Cheney was Darth Vader, the most evil man in the history of the world. Now suddenly they embrace him because he's for Kamala Harris. Members of the McCain family now supporting Kamala Harris. Adam Kinzinger, former congressman, Republican congressman, supporting Kamala Harris. Liz Cheney, who I submit to you suborned perjury, certainly in my case, in the case of General Flynn, in the January 6th committee hearings, supporting Kamala Harris. I think the Harris people see this as bipartisan support, which I think is an outdated measure of our politics. Meanwhile, you have Democrats like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and, well, Governor Rod Blagojevich supporting Donald Trump. What's going on here?
It is. It's a historic political realignment, and it didn't just start this year. I would trace the beginnings of it back to even 1992 with Ross Perot. Donald Trump has taken it to a whole new level, his historic election in 2016. But these dynamics have been swirling around for a few decades now, and I think they've hit pretty much critical mass. I think the American people, are recognizing that the two political parties, as they've been composed, as they've been put together over the past couple of generations, are basically one party, and they're basically the Washington, D.C. establishment party. You talk about the Cheneys, and you talk about this new Democrat Party, how they're supporting Kamala Harris. I mean, these are the people who are, the war hawks of America today. When I was growing up, it was Robert Kennedy's father who took a different position on Vietnam than Johnson, and took a different position than President Nixon did. But he led what was called the peace movement. And so it's a very different party today, the Democrat Party. And the Republican Party is very different. Trump has changed it. And what's happening is working class Democrats like me, like my background, like my voters, black voters increasingly, because Trump is reaching out to them. That's not going to happen overnight. They're getting a lot of flack and a lot of resistance from the establishment Democrats. But they're moving in this direction. Latino voters, I predict Trump is going to win a majority of the Latino vote in this election because they want a chance to chase the American dream, live the American dream because they love America. And they appreciate the fact that Trump is actually talking to working people. And the Democrat Party used to be that party, but for, the last couple of administrations, for sure, Obama started it probably. And there was some of this was beginning with Clinton. Actually, Obama took it to a next level. And Biden, they've become, the party of Hollywood and Silicon Valley and corporate America with this strange coalition with these crazy socialists. But at bottom, nobody really cares about everyday Americans. They want to impose their values and their views and impose upon us. Tucker Carlson says this the best. Things that they tell us are true that we know aren't true. They're elitist snobs, and that's why the Cheneys and the Bush family and Kinzinger and those kind of corporate country club Republicans have joined this Democrat Party. And you look, I think this realignment is going to grow. This isn't just, hitting a point where it's hit optimal potential. I think it's going to continue to grow because the Democrat Party is so caught up with its donor base and some of the other dynamics that they can't get away from. And Trump is, to his great credit, is a transformational American historical figure. And he's leading this alignment. And because of his unique talent, skill, his courage, toughness, determination, hard work, he's got these great qualities. He's leading this movement. And it's a movement that, he hopefully will be successful on Tuesday. But going further into into our history, this will be, I think, the new majority party, this new Trump Republican Party for a long time. So long as, Roger, the elections are free and fair and we can get weaponized prosecutors out of the political system.
All good points. It is a total reversal. Growing up, to me, the Democrat Party was the party of civil liberties, the party of peace, the party that was for spending a little more, taxing a little more, but the Democratic Party was still patriotic. They still believed in capitalism, free enterprise, strong national defense. I'm thinking of Democrats like Henry Scoop Jackson. It seems to me that the people who used to follow Truman and Kennedy now follow Marx and Lenin. There doesn't seem to be any room for moderates even in the Democrat Party. And their closing message here, because look, I'm not a big fan of Obama, who has clearly now taken over the Harris campaign, but he's not stupid. But the closing argument for your campaign is that Donald Trump is Hitler and his supporters are Nazis, as opposed to any positive, uplifting, constructive message about how you're going to make the country better or how you're going to solve our problems. To me, I just find this perplexing. I don't see how any political professional can think that this is the way to close, that this is a winning argument?
Well, Roger, this is something I know a lot about because, again, I was a twice-elected Democratic governor from the fifth largest state in America. I was a three-time elected Democratic congressman. Not only did I support Obama for president, but I supported Nancy Pelosi to be the Democratic leader in the late 1990s when she positioned herself to then become the speaker. So I've got I guess you could say I got some blood on my hands. So I've learned a lot of hard lessons. But here's who they are. They are snobs. They are elitists. They live the good life, and they hang around each other. They're leading members of this club that exists in Washington and exists in our state capital in Illinois, where both sides, Democrats and Republicans, argue on the fringe within certain limits, but they don't go beyond that. And if you go beyond that now, suddenly you're challenging the establishment and the system. And what I call that political industrial complex, which is also the military industrial complex in Washington, is part of that. And it's their way of doing business. And they govern on the backs of the people because they all get rich in this system and in this business. And when the congressman decides not to be a congressman anymore, he or she stays in Washington to become a big, high-priced lobbyist. And they don't like anybody like the Trump, and I would argue me in Illinois, who come with a different approach. Now, the things you talked about that I did when I was governor were kind of traditional Democrat stuff, helping people get health care, helping poor people and seniors get free public transportation. I did those things, but I wouldn't do it on the backs of taxpayers. I found that they had something like 700 different funds in state government that were carrying surpluses that were protecting the interests of different special interest groups. And I took that money and provided services and, I believe, good things for people. It was a different approach. The Democrats didn't like it because they wanted more taxes. And the Republicans, frankly, were mostly corporate country club Republicans here in Illinois. They, frankly, wanted the revenue. They wanted the Democrats to raise taxes so they can then blame the Democrats for that. But they wanted that money to keep spending it on pork barrel projects. So the system has been corrupted over the years, whether it's in our state capital in Illinois and certainly in Washington. And it's basically them and that club. So a congressman gets elected back home in his or her district. The moment they come to Washington, they're co-opted by that establishment, the staffers, the DNC, the DCCC, and all these groups, and they suddenly become members of that club on the backs and at the expense of the voter back home. That's what most of them do. And along comes Donald Trump, and he gets elected, and he does something that very few politicians do. And you know what that is, Roger? He kept his promises. He came to Washington to shake that system up and reorder the priorities. And what did they do to him? Weaponize the prosecutors, fake Russian collusion stuff, impeach them on baloney twice. I'm an expert on this because it's happened to me. And all I can tell you, Roger, is I think we have a wonderful opportunity. God willing, he wins on Tuesday, which I believe he will, so long as we get out and vote, to change America and truly make it great again. And one more thing about my party, the Democrat Party, although I call myself a Trumpocrat now. What's wrong with making America great again? How is that offensive to anybody? And in spite of our problems and the original sin of slavery and how black people have been mistreated in American history, which has absolutely been the case, this is the greatest country in the world. And the best evidence of this is that people from all over the world, whether they come legally or illegally, want to come here. But we're going to lose all of that if we don't do the right things and govern with common sense to find common ground to actually solve problems like, first and foremost, securing our borders.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank our guest, Governor Rod Blagojevich. And Rod, I want to invite you back when your book is done, right here on the Roger Stone Show. We want to preview that and look forward to that. And again, I look forward to seeing you on election night. God bless you, my friend, and thank you for being on the Roger Stone Show.